Now, Kilmar, Armando, Abrego, and whether or not he's going to be coming back from El Salvador. Well, the short answer appears at this point to be no. I say that because the Salvadoran president came just recently to the White House. This is Nayib Bukele. He was asked, is he going to return this guy? And his answer was a very simple no, followed by a single word: preposterous. Frankly, he has the right to take that position, and he is the sovereign head of a sovereign country. And no judge in the United States has the ability to make a foreign government do anything, to be honest, let alone to return this guy to the United States. It looks like, based on that alone, Abrego Garcia's fate is sealed. Now, there's some dispute about whether or not this guy is an MS-13 gang member. It appears that he is. And I say that based upon the identification of him as an MS-13 gang member by apparently another gang member. And an immigration judge was apparently satisfied with this designation. The Trump administration apparently made some error. It could have been a paperwork error. It was an error nevertheless, and this guy got sent to El Salvador. Now, where is he from? He's from El Salvador. So it's not like this is a guy from Venezuela or somewhere else who was sent to El Salvador. He was returned to his home country. He was an illegal in the United States. Whether or not there was a paperwork error in his case, the truth of the matter is that he is a Salvadoran who has been returned to his home country to deal with him as they see fit, and they have seen fit to deposit him into a Salvadoran prison. Now, the judge in the United States was very unhappy with this, acted as if the Trump administration was derelict in its duty, and ordered that his return be effectuated. Effectuated means make it happen. It's your job. You sent him. You need to use your influence with the Salvadoran government to make it happen. The Supreme Court then weighed in on this. And the Supreme Court very significantly said, in a kind of a nuanced ruling, giving a partial victory to Trump, but also a partial upholding of the judge's decision, the Supreme Court basically said, the Trump administration needs to facilitate this man's return, but not, quote, effectuate it. This seems like a splitting of words, kind of a semantic distinction, but I think the distinction is actually quite important. To facilitate something means to enable it, to not stand in its way, to not obstruct it, to not block it, but it doesn't mean to do it. To facilitate it means to enable something to happen, to clear the way. But to effectuate means to put it into effect, to make it happen. And what the Supreme Court is saying is that the Trump administration should not stand in the way, should facilitate or enable this man's return, but the Trump administration does not have to effectuate it, and does not have to make it happen. And further, the Supreme Court very clearly said to the district judge that you need to be respectful of the authority, not only of foreign governments, which is obvious and doesn't even need to be said, but also the wide latitude and discretion of the executive branch in carrying out these kinds of things. In other words, it is sort of not the judiciary's job to play executive, to quarterback the manner in which the executive deals with these problems. The judiciary merely has to decide on legality, constitutionality, and in that sense, interpret the term facilitate, which was the term handed down really by the Supreme Court. And the Trump people actually are taking this as a win. They're basically saying that even though the Supreme Court didn't flatly say to the district judge, butt out, it's none of your business, the Trump people are in the right, the Trump administration is saying we still won. And we won for the simple reason that the judge has no power to make us do anything. The Supreme Court has merely said that we need to facilitate, which is another way of saying that we need to allow, we need to permit, we need to make it possible for this guy to be returned, but whether or not he is returned is in the hands of the Salvadoran government, under whose authority this guy is now. And I think that really is it. So now the judge is in an awkward position because the judge is going to have to say, I think the judge wants this guy back, and they wants to force the hand of the Trump administration, maybe wants to try to portray the Trump administration as lawless, perhaps even in a longer sense wants to set up a record in which a democratically controlled House after the midterms could go after Trump for somehow, flouting the law, disregarding the law. This is the game being played right now between the liberal judges and the executive branch under Trump. But I think the Supreme Court has given enough leeway, if you will, for the Trump administration here to say, no, we are not flouting the law. We're not disregarding what the district judge is saying. We are operating precisely within the parameters of the court's decision, but the court's decision as clarified or modified by the Supreme Court. So I take this as a win. It's a narrow win. I kind of wish the Supreme Court had been more clear, and more clear generally, not just in this case, but to the other judges, basically saying, listen, there can be legitimate issues of constitutionality, but this notion of you guys calling for fired workers to be reinstated, you're trying to run the executive branch. And Trump was elected, not you. You've been nominated by the rival party. So it's not as if democratically appointed judges get to sort of play second guessing in how the country is to be run on all kinds of fronts. I wish the court basically issued a generic back off, but it didn't do that. But nevertheless, I think it did seal the fate in its own way of Kilmar Armando Abrego.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.